Hello everyone, and today we are going to learn how we can create this cool stagger effect, and this is like one of this, and then there are multiple. You could see it goes word by word, and I'm not going to show every single one of the animations that I've added here. This is actually for a bigger tutorial I'm working on, which would show how to animate everything. But this specific tutorial we are just going to learn how we could do these animations. You could see. Now one thing I want you guys to know that you could see as soon as I refresh, the images and all just pop up for a second like this, and then they disappear, because that's just how the web page are made to load. So because it loads the HTML first, then it loads the CSS and then the JavaScript. And again, even if you're not familiar with coding, you will still be able to do this, so don't worry about it. And just remember one thing, that if you're doing something on like the first page, it would flicker for a second like this. You could see, because the animation runs like later on, because first it loads the HTML CSS. So the easier way to fix this would be adding a preloader, or just having content like below, so that you see this one also has that effect, but because this animation or this text is getting loaded below our screen, it is not being noticeable. So if I just refresh my page around here, you could see it just pops up for a few seconds like this and then loads it. It's very like if you are around here, it would not be noticeable. So if I go down, you could see it's not noticeable. It's not noticeable simply because the HTML, CSS and script is already loaded, but around here it is first loading the HTML and CSS. Okay, now we are going to use GSAP for this. GSAP is a library, JavaScript library. Again, if you're not familiar with coding with JavaScript, you will still be able to do this. And that's because GSAP is like a very powerful JavaScript library, which makes the animation like very easy. So let's get started quickly. If you go to like their GSAP site, you would be able to see like the stuff that you are able to do with it. You could see lots of different stuff. If I refresh the page, it would be visible, but let's just skip it, else the video gets like too long. And if you go to the docs, here you could see everything that you want. If you want to like see the code and all, or just learn more about it. Also I had ChatGPT running to fix some issues, because sometimes it's harder to find out if you miss some semicolon, or if you miss some brackets and all. You could just paste in ChatGPT and be like, just fix the code for me, and it will say that on this line you forgot to add a semicolon and stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a text in here. I just created like a container, basically 100 VH and then black color, nothing crazy, and then made it to be in the middle. I'll make this white, give this one enter text size, whatever you want, you could give it. I'll also copy like this text like this. Okay, I'll play around something like this. Okay, it looks good. And then let's make it like 70. So this is our text, how we want it to look at, like this. All we simply need to do is get the HTML widget and then add it below here. And as soon as we add this, we actually need to go and type in JavaScript, in Google, GSAP CDN. And this is using a JavaScript library. So if you know JavaScript, it does help a little. But if you don't know, you will still be able to do this after this tutorial. It's not a JavaScript tutorial, it's a GSAP tutorial. So it would be easy to do. Okay. The first one that you see, we just need to copy the script tag and then paste it in here. Now one thing is, let's say you added this tag and then you did some animation and all, and then still your animation is not working. Try removing this and then see if that works or not, because sometimes there might be a plugin which has added the GSAP script to your website. So if there is no plugin added or anything that is not adding the script, one easy way to check it is by using this Chrome extension called Vaporizer. And you could see if I scroll down, it says GSAP is being used around here. And obviously if you like change the page, you will need to like make sure you go in here and then, you know, clear the cache and then refresh the page like this. That way it would show the updated version. You could say it's not showing around here, but this page is using GSAP, so it is showing that GSAP is being used. But if you don't want to use extension at all, all you need to simply do is you should remove this src and then see if your animation works. If the animation works even without adding this, then GSAP is being added by something else like your plugin or theme. But if it's not running and if you add this and then it runs, then obviously it means that nothing has been adding it. Okay. Now also another thing is when you add this script on an HTML widget, it only runs the script on that page. Okay. Because if you want to run your script on your whole website, you could add it in your custom code or anything, but I would not recommend it, because it's only recommended if the whole website uses GSAP, because else it's unnecessary, because GSAP will increase the page speed a bit because we are adding like a new library. And one more thing, another thing is if you duplicate this one, and let's say if you want to have like 2 different HTML widget to keep it organized, you don't need to have like this src on every single one of them. Again, it only needs to be one of it, because we are simply doing is we are referencing this code, like which is like this one, and then running it on our website. So it only needs to run it once. Okay, so make sure you only keep it once. Now let's get started. So we have added the script src like this. Let's give our text a class call. I'll add a DM heading class like this. Let's go and type style. Now this thing is okay, so let's type DM heading first, okay, before I explain. Now if you are using Elementor, you need to type something called transition none and then type important. So why we are typing this is because by default Elementor adds like a transition all. This code it adds for every single element in Elementor, but we don't want this because the animation should be controlled by our GSAP. So by having this, it just messes it up. So doing none, we just overwrite and say that it should not use like any transition. Okay, because we will be using GSAP to control all of it. So wherever you will be using GSAP, just make sure to add this. Then we will type script, and this is where we will add our GSAP. Okay, so let me show you how it works. So if you go to the docs, you actually get like something to read that if you want to like confirm something, but I'll explain it instead from here. Okay, so in GSAP we type like something like GSAP2, or we type GSAP2, or we type GSAP from. Okay, so what does to and from means? This one has some location in here, right? So if I, let's say, remove this one, and then if I add a bracket, so before that let me show like the normal method of typing GSAP. So if we type GSAP, then we type to, or we type from, and then we open bracket, and then we add this single quotation, and inside of this we add our class. So we know we added our CSS class as DM heading. You could see we added DM heading, but if you were using CSS ID, instead of dot, we will be using hash. Okay, so we are using CSS class, so we will use dot. After you do that, just add a comma, open and close curly bracket, to enter, and then do a semicolon at the end. This is just a method to use GSAP. You can just copy paste it, you will get used to it. So usually it's like GSAP to or from, open bracket, in single quotation the class that we want to animate, and then comma, and then all the code should be inside of this. Okay, so if I type y equal to 100, you could suddenly see something just happen. Okay, so if I type duration and do for 2 seconds, let's do preview changes. You could say it went from this to this location, which is like y100. So when we do 2, it goes from the initial location to this locations or this attributes. Okay, and if we do from, if we do let's say from, it will do is it will go from this location to whatever the initial or default location that you had given. So if it will go from this one, you could say it will go from this one to whatever the initial location was. So basically it's just from and to, nothing is normal what you call English language. As I want it to be 2, I will keep GSAP 2 for time being. I can add opacity, I can do opacity 0 like this. Make sure you add comma like this, and whatever the last attribute is should not have a comma like this. Okay, if you mess something up, it would not run, the code would just not run. So which is why I like to do is I like to keep ChatGPT open like this, and then copy in your ChatGPT and just say that what's the mistake, and it will say that you added a comma here or stuff like this. Okay, now you could see the animation working obviously. So right now it is, let's set it to 1 because we want it is set to 2, right? So it should go to that state. So we need to add opacity 0 around here. So here we are setting the initial location and it will go to this state or location. So let's see what happens. And you could see it went from 0 to 1 of this. So now if I keep it to be 50, let's do from instead. So it will go from this state to this state. I'll change it to 0 because we want it to go from this value to opacity 1. Let's try this in preview changes. And you could say it worked. It went from bottom to up. So all we simply need to do is we need to do this same step but for every single text like this. And for that we will need to divide this text into its own containers. But if we try to do that manually, it would just take too much time, and especially if you have something like this, you know, it will get like very annoying to do it. Okay, which is why we use another JavaScript library called split type. And split type just makes it easier to divide our text into like lines, words and characters. So let's go down, and again for this one you could see in the CDN tab, you could see in installation in CDN we have another script. So let's copy this and then paste it around here. So we added the script around here. Now I don't remember how the split type works, which is why I'm going to use this documentation to remember. So I do remember that we have to use this one. So it is constant, and then we can type anything around here, and then this is the class or ID that we want to split into. So I'm going to go in here in our script. I'm going to copy this. We can name it anything, so I'll just name it DM heading. Now obviously we cannot add like dash or dot in JavaScript. Okay, in this one, in quotation, we want to have our DM heading. So let's see what happens if I do this. Okay, well, there's something showing around here, you could see, and that is because this is just how Elementor has made the HTML. But if you were using just coding, it would have worked without having to do this extra step. Okay, and that is simply let's go to our heading. It is invisible right now because the animation is running for some reason, but let me just like make this normal. Okay, there we go. There is an HTML tag we have given h2, so we know it is h2. So all we simply need to do is go into our split type dot DM heading space type h2. Okay, so what it also means is that I'm using navigator around here. If some issue like this happens, all you need to do is delete your heading by like deleting it, and then do Ctrl Z. It will be just visible. Okay, what we are simply doing is, we know this is h2, so we will actually add DM heading h2 like this. But if it was anything else like h1 to h6, you will have that one added around here, or if you are using p, you will be using p around here. Okay, let's try this. What happens if I preview now? It is working. It kind of messed up the layout because it was not this small, right? But you could see that if I check here, our text has been divided into line like this, and then our text has been divided into, if I go in here, you could see in this one. Okay, so line, you could see div class line. Inside of this we have div class word. So it has been divided into word, and this has been divided into like characters. So each, if for some reason it is refreshing, let's go around here. So you could see inside of each word it has been divided into character like this. So again, you might be wondering why this issue is happening, because this is not how it looks around here, and that is because our code is running even before our CSS has been loaded. Okay, and you know CSS is used for styling. So if I like remove this thing and let's do preview changes, Let's see if it is visible for a few seconds or not. Let me refresh it and see. You could see for a few seconds it is in the smaller shape and then it turns into this bigger shape. So why this is happening is because HTML gets loaded first and then the styling gets applied. We want our code, which is like to divide the text, to be applied after like this after this like CSS has been applied. So all we simply need to do is we want to run this code after everything has been loaded, like all HTML and CSS has been loaded, and it is usually like a normal practice or good practice to do it. That way your page speed is better and it's just better user experience too. So this is the code that we use. It's just like an add event listener, which is like when the DOM has been loaded, run the code inside of this one. So I'll just do enter and then add our code inside of this watch. So like this code will run after the page has been loaded. So let's copy this and then paste inside of our script. Again, you don't really need to do this for every single time, because in this one I haven't done that and the code runs. But here it has to be done that, and it is very much like case by case dependent if you want to add the DOM content loaded or not. So you could see now the text just looks perfect, and if I do inspect, it is still divided. Now you could see that the animation does work, which is like this Y50 to whatever we are doing. So it goes from this to this, but we want it to do for every single text. So we know that every word has been divided into a class called word. Every line has been divided into a class called line, and every character has been divided into a class called char, character, basically, by using our split type. So what we can do is we could go in here, go into like DM heading, and then we could do is we could type is this DM heading. So when we are using this much, this one, we don't really need to add the quotation. Okay, so let's type DM heading, because here you could see we have added all of the split type into this constant, which is DM heading. And then what we want to animate. So if we want to do line by line, or we want to do word by word, or we want to do character by character. So if we want to do word by word, we will type words. So make sure you add S at the end. Okay, words. That's just how the split type library has been made, so that it runs to every single CSS class, and that just makes our work easier, rather than if we try to do with native, it would just increase the code a lot. So if we want to do line, we will do lines. If we want to do character, we will do characters. So I want to do words, so I'll do words. Make sure no quotation is used, and let's try what happens. So you could see nothing actually happened, but it actually animated all of it together. We don't want that. We want it to be one by one. So we will do comma, we will do stagger, and I'll do stagger of 0.2 seconds. Okay. Let's see what happens if I do 0.2 seconds of stagger. And you could see one by one it started popping up. So how does this work? So we know duration, which is like how much time it should take from one location to another, or one state to another. It takes 2 seconds to go from Y50 to whatever Y around here it is, or it takes 2 seconds to go from 0 opacity to 1 opacity. What stagger does is it makes the first text go on top, and then it waits for 0.2 seconds, and then it makes the second one go to the top, and then third one, and for each text there would be 0.2 seconds of a difference. So it gives this staggering text kind of effect. You could say it gives this staggering text kind of effect. And all you simply need to do is play around with value. We could make the duration be like 1, and then make the stagger to be 1. We could increase Y to be 100. It's like 10:30 p.m. and there's still so much traffic outside my house. So you could see we got this effect. Now another thing we could do is we could type dm.dm heading, and if I do right click inspect, we know our text has been divided into like its own container, right? So this is line, then each is like word. So we could just do is we could do we could make the line. So here we do not add the plural. Okay, this is not JavaScript, this is CSS. And here we can type overflow hidden, and let's do this. And you could see we get this cool looking effect where it is getting popped up like this. So obviously I don't like how it is looking. So it is stuttering a bit. It should be invisible at start. So what we can do is we could make it be 0. So we will make the DM heading be 0, and then we will add a code which makes it opacity to 1. Now remember that this code is actually making the words turn from 0 opacity to 1. Okay, because we have set it to from. We want our heading tab. So basically heading is like a container. If you are not familiar with HTML, you know how we add like a container. This is same as adding a div. This is same as adding a div and giving a CSS class. So whenever we add anything inside of this, it is same as adding another div inside of it. So each container you could consider, think of it as a div. What is a div? So if we go in here, so now it is not visible because we are working with the code. Okay, so you could see that each line is a div like this. If you go in here, this is our container. Inside of this we have a div, and then we are basically converting all words into like its own container, and then all words, so all characters have its own containers like this. Okay, so what's happening is now we need to make this DM heading container, which is like this big container, and inside of this we have like small containers like which has the class word, line and character. Okay, so first we will work with this one only. So here we will type GSAP, we will make it 2. Okay, so 2, we will type .dm heading like this, open curly bracket, and I'll make it go to opacity 1 like this, and I'll add a delay. So what delay does is, rather than instantly doing it, it will wait for 1 second and then it will start the animation. So right now you could see everything is hidden, and then it did 1 second delay to actually show this one. But we also need to add delay into this one, because right now what's happening is, I know this might seem complicated for people who are not familiar with coding, but this one is getting converted from 0 to 1 opacity, but the animation is happening already for all of this one like this. So we can simply do is, for the stagger animation we could also add a delay of, I guess, 1.5. why not? Let's try it. It will not work because I just messed up the code. Let's see if you guys can see the issue from in this code, which is like very simple and which would like almost not make it work. The answer is I forgot to add a comma around here. So let's do it. And you could say it worked. Maybe we do not need 1.5. So what is happening is we are making this container go from 0 to 1, so that it is hidden by default. By default it is like empty. Then it takes like 1 second to show that container, and then we show the text inside of this. So this is all we are doing basically to make it work. I'll actually remove this one, which is like overflow, and let's see what it is actually doing. Let's see if we can see the animation better. And here you could see the animation like this. And it is not limited to just opacity and Y. We could also make X change. I'll make it change in, let's say, 30 degree. Now because when we add all of this stuff like this, we cannot just type 30 degree around here. We need to add this in a quotation. So if you want to do some percentage value around here, you will need to add it in the quotation. So if you want to do from 50% to and all, you will need to add it in the quotation. So let's type 30 degree and let's see what happens. So it will go from this one to your own normal one. Again, forgot to add the comma. And you could say we could make some weird stuff like this. We can also do some scale, so it scales from 0 to 1 and all. Now another issue that I totally was not going to cover in this video, but I feel like I should, that is we want the animation. So let's say if this container or this text was not around here, but it was actually below somewhere here, we don't want the animation to run right before we even reach that location. So let's say if I copy this, if I move this container to like somewhere below, and let's do preview changes. Right now this is my first section, right? The page has been loaded. Let's go below. So wait, the animation is not running, and it's not like the animation is not running, it's that the animation was already finished before we even reached around here. And obviously we cannot just add like a 10-second delay, because we don't know how much time it would take for a user to actually reach here. Someone could just scroll quickly, or someone could take like a minute because he was like not checking your website, he was just like went to pee or something. And for this we use something which is like, if we go to GSAP libraries, we have something called scroll trigger. So we'll copy the script tag, go to our heading, which is like our wherever we have done the animation, and I'll add the script tag around here. So first one is for GSAP, second one is something which is from GSAP, which is scroll trigger, and then third one is split type. Okay, and this is like very simple, it's not like very complicated to you. If you tried once or twice, it would be like very easy, and I'll also be creating like a bigger tutorial which would go in depth, and it would be like you would just be an animation master after that. So how does that work? So let me show you. Let's do for just DM heading for now. Okay, so let me just copy this. So how scroll trigger works is we type scroll trigger. Okay, so make sure the spelling is correct. So S is small and then T is capital. Then we add double dot and then we open curly brackets, and let's just close it like this. Instead of this, we add all the information of like when the animation should start and all, or any other stuff that are related with scroll trigger. So first thing we do is we add a trigger, and right now our trigger should be that when this one reaches like a certain state, or when our text, let me like delete and show you. It's not going to be visible because opacity is set to, okay, so this text should only be visible when it is in the middle of the screen or somewhere around here, wherever you want. Basically, I like to keep it in the middle of the screen or somewhere below around here. So when we want to use this as the trigger, okay, even if you don't understand, don't worry, we will be adding something called markers, and you will be able to like just understand it. So here we will just type this same one. Okay, you could actually type like anything else. For example, if you want the animation to run around here, or if you want to use this as a trigger point for this to show, you could use the CSS class of this much. So you could add a CSS class around here and then add it around here. But I want to use this much only, so this one only. So I'll just keep the trigger like this only. So in like double quotation, in single quotation, we will type .dm heading. Okay, so let's do comma. This is our trigger. We will type scroller, and then here we will type body. You don't need to worry about anything else, just type body in our scroller. Okay, then we will have start and end point. Usually we don't need start and end point for something like this, but I'll show you one more cool trick, which is scrub, which would like explain to you. Okay, so we will add a single quotation inside of this. Now how this start and end works. Okay, so the first thing that we add, which is like 0%, so this one would be 0% and the bottom would be 100%. Okay, we add 0% or 100%, so our start point should be the top part of this much, so we will add 0%. And then the second is our viewport location. So where should this point, so this point should connect with like which point of our viewport. Viewport is basically like our screen. Okay, nothing crazy. So I like to keep it 50%, so it means that whenever this top part would connect with the middle part, the animation should run. And for the end, we don't really need to have an end, but I'll show you something cool trick. I'll add like 0%. So like the top part should trigger with, I guess, 0% of the viewport, which is like the top part. So 0, 100, bottom. Okay. So let's copy this much. Also make sure we add a comma around here. You see, because this scroll trigger is same as adding this much. So we will not add a comma. Sorry, we will add a comma. But let's say if this was at the end, it was at the bottom, we would not add a comma, because here you could see I said we do not add the comma to whatever it is at the end. And this is same as adding this much. Okay. So let's copy this and see what happens. Okay. Don't worry if you're not understanding, we will add markers and it would just be like, you will just understand everything. So let's do this. Let's do preview and see. So we wait for a few seconds and then the animation still loaded. And the reason the animation actually loaded is because the animation is actually, we have added the animation for this much, right? So let's just do 0 for now, because it goes from 0 to 1 for this much, right? So let's do preview changes and see. So right now it should be invisible, and when I go on there, it should be visible. Okay. So one issue I did was I didn't add comma to like all of this stuff. Okay. So comma, nothing at the end. Okay. Let's wait for a few seconds and then scroll. And you could see it worked. It did took a time because we have a delay added. So what we are doing, if we type comma and then type markers equal to true, let's do preview changes and see what happens. So all of the data that is for like scroll trigger is added into this much, and then any animation is added outside this. You could see we see something here called scroll start, and there would be scroll end around here because we have set to 0, right? We have set it to 0 like scroller end, but because this like Elementor tab is showing, it is not being visible. But if I scroll down, you could see we actually have a start end around here, which is as soon as this trigger touches this one, you could see the animation runs. So that way we actually use the scroll trigger to make our stuff work. If I, let's say, make the end have like 20%, that way we would be able to see the scroll end too. So again, it's not going to be anything crazy. It's just going to be a text around here, which is like scroll end. You could see. And scroll end is actually not usually needed, but unless you want this to like change, as soon as this like crosses it, it should like turn to like its older state if you want to reverse it, or if you want to have the animation run like always. If you scroll down and if you want to go back and the animation should run again, then you will need to do that. But again, you could like check this documentation, because now the tutorial is getting like way too big for just like this one. So this is how you could do like scroller start and stuff, and that way the animation just runs when it like touches each other like this. So you could say it just runs after doing all this. Obviously you don't need to add a delay, because the delay is only necessary if it's like on the top part like this, but as it is not on the top part, we could just remove the delay and all. And there are more stuff into this like scrub and all. Scrub basically allows you to like animate it based on your scroll. So might as well just show you guys quickly. So if I do scrub true, let's see if it works. You could see as soon as I do, the animation is like, you could see based on my scroll start and scroll end, the animation is happening. Now I almost forgot that the animation for the words showing is not showing, and that is simply because we haven't added the scroll trigger into this one. And again, remember that we added the dot heading because it was actually being visible by default. So what I'm going to do is I'm removing scrub. I'm just going to copy this one and then add it around here like this. We could make the markers false for one of it and then keep it true for just this one. Let's see what happens. So as of now, this animation should not be running at all when we are on the top. So let's just wait for a few seconds, like 1, 2, 3. That's more than enough. As soon as we scroll, as soon as we touch this, you could see the animation works. We could just remove the delay completely, like this. So let's do preview changes. Let's scroll down, and you could see the animation runs. So this is how you could create like a stagger effect. You could do like a lot more than this, and I'll create like a bigger tutorial in future. So yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching. Consider liking and subscribing. So there's like, if you check my website, you will find like free Elementor templates and also like blogs and stuff, and use the links in description to get Elementor Pro or Hostinger, and that way you could support me. So yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.